Hey there, welcome to the DFS Build NBA edition. I'm Kevin Roberts, joined Taylor Smith, and I am sick, so my voice sounds terrible. Forgive me for that, but hey, we're still here to give you some advice and hopefully point you to some winning NBA DFS picks for this nice 10-game slate. It's a nice little upgrade from yesterday's 4-gamer, so a lot more wiggle room. But obviously, if you still need some advice, we're here to help. If we do help you in any way, please give this video a like and also subscribe to the channel. Both those things help us, and in turn, they also help you. So we're going to go position by position, starting with the point guard up top. Trae Young and LaMelo Ball are kind of interchangeable. Both coming in with 51 plus fantasy point projections, which is just crazy. They're not expensive enough for what they're projecting at. So let's start there, Taylor. Are you looking at LaMelo or Trae up top, even though they're both garnering over 22% ownership at the moment?
Yeah, I think LaMelo would be the one that I like the most, underpriced. I think he played 36 minutes in the first game. He's only 9,300. Good matchup. He played really well in that game against Houston, who's supposed to be a good defensive team. Atlanta, not so much. So
no,
I think they're both fine. I do prefer LaMelo just with the savings you get compared to Trae Young. But both look really good to me. I'm trying to filter by position because I don't have it filtered properly by position. On the high end, he's kind of the flag plants I have. I don't really have a lot of Trae Young, which is a bit scary. Otherwise, I'm kind of going cheaper with guys like Curry and Brunson in the 8K to 9K range.
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously, here's the thing. There's a lot of good plays on the slate. You could make a case for Trae Young, LaMelo, Curry, Maxey, Lillard. All those guys look awesome, but none of them are as good of a value as Brunson is. Brunson looks like a smash play at 8.6K. I mean, he faced Boston in game 1. Now he gets the Pacers. It's just a much better situation overall, and he's just a good player. He's likely to bounce back. So I love Brunson. He is my flag plant at point guard. If you want to pay up for these other guys, I don't have a problem with it whatsoever. Brunson's just a better value, in my opinion. There's still other good guys too. Cade Cunningham, Tyrese Halliburton, John Morant, Donovan Mitchell. These guys are all viable. I just think Brunson is one that stands out the most for me.
Yeah, the matchup, like last year, we were kind of streaming everyone against Indiana. So
yeah,
the matchup really couldn't be more different than the one they faced against Boston the other night when they were horrible and got their asses kicked. This is a great spot, so I do think he's a great play. I think Curry's a great play. The matchup against Utah is going to be a good one all season. No Klay Thompson anymore with that team, so usage should be pretty free for Steph. He was questionable, I think, but now he's definitely going to play. He's available officially. His price came up a bit. I think he was like 8.5 the other night. Now he's 8.9, but for the role he might play, I still think he's a bit underpriced. And I'm just hoping Utah can keep up in that game, unlike Portland the other night. There are a lot of other spins I'm not really getting to at point guard. I'm kind of prioritizing those 3, Ball, Curry, Brunson, and then I'm otherwise kind of going down to the next tier with like Van Vliet. CJ McCollum, I think, is okay against a revenge game against Portland. And D'Angelo Russell is under 6K. I think he's a pretty interesting option too.
Yeah, I mean, CJ is a good call. Obviously, DeJounte Murray is not going to play. He's out. So every Pelican player looks pretty good. CJ McCollum is coming in under 10% owned. I don't know if I believe that ownership, but with all the really good point guards on the slate, maybe that is. Is he just another? Yeah. So is he just like another Kyrie Irving on this slate too? Like kind of fool's gold? I don't know. But at 7.5K, he is a good play with Murray out, no doubt about it. As far as like punts here, what are you looking at? I think the first one that comes to mind is probably going to be Dyson Daniels, who can be used at shooting guard as well, just because Bogdanovich is out for Atlanta, and he played like 34 minutes and was good in his first game. I don't know if we can really have a lot of confidence in Dyson Daniels crushing 2 games in a row ever, but he's 4.6K. He's facing the Hornets, and he's going to have a pretty cemented role.
Yeah, I think he's a good play. I'll probably be around the field. It looks like he's going to be pretty popular. 30-ish% ownership, could be more, but he's cheap, 2 position eligibility. I'm a little concerned that he had 6 stocks in that first game. That's pretty unsustainable. And then he had a 17% usage rate. So not a lot of offense from him, but the minutes were great. The role should be there. He's starting for them with DeJounte Murray traded. So I think he's a good value. I think we can go right back to Miles McBride as well. 4,100, way better matchup this time. He was like the one Nick who came through on opening night. He ran really hot with the shooting, but I think he is a good shooter. He has a good role off the bench. I think 4-1 is just kind of cheap for him on a slate without a ton of like obvious punt value. So those would be the two punty guys that stand out. And I think another one worth mentioning is Jalen Suggs, 4,800 against Brooklyn. I never love playing Orlando guys in general, but it is a good team. He has a role. Brooklyn should be horrible. They might be the worst team in the NBA this season. So the Magic look pretty good, all things considered. And Suggs for 4.8 is kind of cheap compared to what he was all of last year.
Yep, I'm okay with all of that. Not super excited to play any Magic guy not named Banchero, but that 4.8 is 4.8. All right, let's move it over to shooting guard, where we have, let's see, Donovan Mitchell up top with a 42-point fantasy projection. This is just not a good position whatsoever. This would probably be where I'd play CJ McCollum if I'm going to play him. He doesn't even come in with a 40-point fantasy projection, which also plays into his not great ownership. The owned guy here is going to be Zach LaVine and Kelly Oubre owned guys. Kelly Oubre's price has come down to 6.2. He was good in the opener. He remains a good play. No PJ13, no Joel Embiid. So I can't fault you for playing him at all. The only issue is he's going to be 25% or more owned. Zach LaVine at 7K flat. He looks pretty good. I don't have a problem with him at all. This is just not a spot where I feel like I need to go pay up. I don't need to go get Spida. I don't need to go get Devin Booker or Desmond Bane. I think those guys are fine, but they're just not going to be priority spends for me on this slate. So I mean,
Yeah.
I'm looking at Dyson Daniels here. I'm looking at, I mean, you're not gonna love it, but Trey Mann for the Hornets.
I was going to
30,
bring up Trey Mann. So
yeah, 35 fantasy points in his first game, 29 minutes. Hawks are a good matchup. Who's the guy who's out for Charlotte? Yeah, Brandon Miller's out, so that's significant. So I think at 4.3K, we can roll the dice on him and or Dyson Daniels, and those are two like major salary savers right away, and you kind of can do whatever you want after that.
Yeah, another one I would bring up is Dick for 55K actually.
He's in my first build, him and Man together. So
yeah, Dick Man together. No Quickly,
as it should be, I suppose.
Indeed. Yeah. No Quickly, no Barrett, no Olynyk, no Bruce Brown. So they're quite thin.
Yeah.
They got crushed the other night. The spread tonight, last I saw against Philly, was like 5 points. Philly also banged up. So hopefully Toronto can stay competitive. I think he's a good salary saver. They had him projected for a ton of minutes, like 35. Not a
he
high
still played 29
guy,
in like a 30-point game, so that's encouraging.
He should be
too.
Blowout proof. Yeah, like
right.
Second year guy should be fine in any scenario. Daniels, of course, Levine and Oubre, McBride, all the same guys we talked about at point guard. Trey Mann, I do like that call with no Brandon Miller. Colin Sexton kind of spare the other night, but still only 6,400, has a starting role for Utah. Shooting guard only. Don't mind that if he's low owned. Austin Reeves, still under 6K, I think looks decent enough for the Lakers. And then the Gary Trent thing is interesting. If he's out, I don't really know what they're going to do. He's been starting or did start for them the other night. If he plays, I think he's okay. He's cheap. He's got guard forward eligibility, 5K flat also as a pivot away from Dick. I don't think that's a bad play.
No, I had Trenton initially until I saw these questionables. So then I just, I'm kind of planning for him to be out at this point. But Pat Connaughton is okay at 3.9K. He had like 19 minutes and was hitting some shots and stuff in the first game. So if he's going to be looking at like 25 minutes, I think at 3.9, that's totally fine. I don't really feel comfortable playing AJ Green at 3K flat, even if he starts. I just feel like that's going to be a situation where Pat ends up getting most of those, extra minutes, or maybe they slide it over to Taurean Prince just being out there, extra time, or I don't know. I don't feel great about AJ Green, even though 3K, if anybody who starts at 3K is in play, but it's just not something that I would really gravitate towards personally.
Yep.
All right, let's kick it over to small forward. Up top, we got LeBron James leading the way with a 47-point fantasy projection. No other small forward has over 40 fantasy points projecting for the night. Lauri Markkanen is the next one at 39, and Brandon Ingram is right behind him. Those guys are fine. Their prices are coming in as discounts. Ingram, obviously, with no DeJounte there. All Pelicans are in play. I like Ingram okay, but with Zion Williamson back, kind of lean in Zion in that conversation personally. So I think Ingram's fine. Lowry's fine. LeBron is not a bad spend up on this slate because I think it's possible Anthony Davis, because Anthony Davis is one of the best studs. So Anthony Davis, if he gets ownership, I think LeBron is a pretty interesting leverage play at only 8.9K. He's like $1,200 cheaper. So LeBron is in my player pool for sure. He's a guy I like. And then most of the guys we already talked about. So like value with Dick. You got some like mid-range guys like Denny, Kuminga, even though he sucks, he's got a role. And then Oubre, like we discussed, and Levine. So nothing crazy popping out here that we haven't already touched on. Is there anything else you see at small forward?
Rui, still only 5K, played quite well the other night as a starter. Matchup against Phoenix isn't great, but I think he's fine enough value that probably isn't going to be that popular, I wouldn't think. I like the LeBron call. He looked a little slow the other night, which kind of concerned me since he's 39 years old. But
could be a problem.
That could be a problem. But I don't know. I don't mind it. The game should be close. I'm not going to just suggest he's fully washed after looking bad in one game. So first game of the year, maybe he was just rusty a little bit. Fine with him. I don't hate DeAndre Hunter. Looks like he might be somewhat popular, but like you said, no Bogdanovic. That game in general looks really good. I never loved to play DeAndre Hunter, but he's cheap, so it is what it is. Cody Martin in the same vein. We're going to get to Caleb Martin, but Cody Martin's under 4K, and they don't have Brandon Miller. They don't have Mark Williams. They're pretty thin. I think he started the other night. Not a comfortable play, not a fun play at all, but there aren't many guys under 4K on this slate that feel good, and I think he's one of the better ones by default.
Is he pulling ownership at the moment?
Cody Martin?
Yeah, no, 9%.
Yeah.
I think if it gets to the point where Trey Mann is crazy owned and Cody Martin is getting overlooked, we can consider that for sure. But I like Trey on this slate, so I think both are fine. And LeBron, if LeBron's washed, I don't even care. It's just like he's going to be out there for 35 plus minutes and just soak up stats. It doesn't matter.
There are a bunch of guys you can play here, like Josh Hart is on the slate. I guess he's okay. Cam Johnson. Nothing to get really excited about, though. I think we kind of covered it for the most part.
Yep. All right, on to power forward we go. Giannis Antetokounmpo leads the way overall on the slate. Best projection at 55 fantasy points. Certainly the best projection for power forwards, but not that far ahead of the aforementioned LeBron or Paulo Banchero, who's coming in with a 49-point fantasy projection and is very owned at 30%. So the price is good on Banchero. He looked really good in the first game, but I'm out on that ownership. It's a 10-game slate. There's other options for me. Go play him if you want to. He's in a good spot against the Nets, but I would just rather I'd rather pivot to LeBron, who's like a third of the ownership, or pay up for what looks to be a completely unowned Giannis, which is kind of appealing on its own. And I really like Zion. Zion's cheaper, and he's also a third of the ownership. So another guy, Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes is $100 more and not owned whatsoever. I don't think he's in Philly with no Embiid and PJ13. That's not really a difficult matchup. It's just the Raptors aren't very good. However, he's going to soak up crazy usage with all the injuries you mentioned for Toronto. So if you like Grady Dick, then you definitely should like Scotty Barnes. The only difference is you're paying 8.8K to get him.
I love Scotty Barnes. I have him tagged there on lineup HQ. Paulo Banchero also, I think, looks very good even at ownership. I love the Zion call. I think he's off the injury report. Going to play tonight. He's 8,100. Like, I think he was over 9K for most of last season. And Portland is a fucking tire fire. I think Zion might be the best play on the slate.
Right. And he's not owned, dude. That's crazy. 10%.
Yeah. Scotty Barnes, like I said. There's a lot to like on the high end. I think all those guys are good plays. There is good value here as well with Caleb Martin being 4,900 and presumably starting. Came off the bench behind KJ Martin in the last game, and then Caleb started the second half. Caleb played like 37 minutes in the game, and he basically didn't leave the game in the second half at all.
Yeah.
Not a good per minute guy historically, but the minutes should be pretty safe. Like RG has him at 31 minutes, and that could be on the low end in a great matchup against Toronto.
Chalky Caleb Martin, though.
Yeah, but I mean, NBA chalk is generally not the worst thing in the world. You can't just fade all the ownership and project decently enough. So I think he's pretty
You'll
good shot.
see.
I'm sure he'll fail, but I just think in theory he's a very good play.
Yeah. I agree. I just know that it's going to go wrong if I commit to him 100% or something crazy. A lot of the same guys you talked about before, Rui, obviously Caleb's there, DeAndre Hunter. What
Aldama is another good play in the same
you want to
range.
go for this? How do you say his name? Yabu Sali?
I sure don't. I guess
Well, I
he's
mean, speaking
okay,
of
like as
Philly
the
guys,
backup center, but I
yeah,
don't know.
4K.
He was 3K the other night. Today's 4K.
That's true.
So.
We barely wanted to play him then, I suppose, right? Okay, so I think that does it for power forward for the most part. Nothing else. And let me just double check. I like Bobby Portis at 5.7K. Chris Middleton is still out. If Gary Trent is also out, that only boosts his overall, volume and usage. So he just like seems to always wreck. I don't know what it is. If he has any expanded role whatsoever, he always seems to get it done. So I think that's it. But honestly, the high end of power forward looks pretty darn good. It's tough to get away from those guys. There's other guys that we're not even talking about that are discounted. KD, Siakam, Jalen Johnson. I mentioned Lowry before. Like these guys, Miles Bridges without Brandon Miller at 7.2K looks really good too. So lots to like at power forward. It just depends like where you want to flag plant. Like if you had to say play this one power forward, who are you looking at? Scotty?
Probably Zion. But Scotty's right there, Banchero's right there, LeBron is right there. I think my favorite dollar for dollar is definitely Zion, though. He's cheaper than all the other ones.
Agreed. Zion's one of my favorite plays. He's locked in for me. I think if you are going to pay up, my personal advice, if I could be wrong, but my personal advice, if you're going to pay up, I'd pivot to LeBron off of Banchero. I just don't want to eat that much chalk. It's just an easy spot to get different. They project so closely, and you're just getting an edge right away if Banchero goes south, and LeBron is a hammer to end the night. All right, let's move it over to center where there's a lot of good plays. Giannis obviously can be used there too. Like I said, top projecting player of the slate. Right behind him is Anthony Davis. Neither of these guys are carrying ownership right now, which is a little bit surprising. But the mid-range and like the high-level options beyond the two studs is crazy loaded. Like you don't need to play Giannis or Anthony Davis. The only thing is they project it very well. We might have lost Taylor there for a second. Oh, we got him back. But they project very well. They're not going to be owned. So what's your strategy for tonight as far as like paying up for a high-end stud? Do you feel like that is a quick way to gain leverage on the field? Like just go play one of Giannis or Brow?
I prefer Brow to Giannis. I'm not really getting to a lot of Giannis tonight, which is kind of scary, but Davis is just cheaper. I think the spot is fine against Phoenix. It's not fun to fade Giannis, but I'm going to be pretty low on him tonight, I think, at 11-1. Like he's 1K more expensive, and I don't really think he should be.
Yeah, I just like that he's 1% owned. But yeah, honestly, I mean, the guy I'm looking at center anyways is going to be Şengün. He was amazing in the first game. Really no reason to go away from him now. He's only 8.8K. Still too cheap. I mean, if you want to play Zion at center, you can do that too. He's there. So I think Giannis and Brow are just like, if you really have the funds and want to go dumpster diving in several spots, I mean, nobody's going to be on them. So that is appealing. But Şengün also not owned. So I love Şengün over somebody like Banchero in the utility slot or something like that. Let's see what I mean. Drummond at 6.8K. I think he's okay. I think if he's going to be out there, that's good. And also because
best center on the slate, Andre Drummond.
I agree. The really nice value there. I don't feel like I'm going to force it, but at 6.8K, it's going to be tough to not use Drummond. The only problem is I really like Şengün, and there's a value center that I really, really like on the slate.
Kessler?
Nope. Although
Jackson
Kessler,
Davis?
nothing wrong with 5.5 Kessler. Yeah, it's Jackson Davis at 4.5K. If he starts again, he started last time and did decently, 24 fantasy points. He's only 4.5K. We know he's a versatile player, and the Jazz are a good matchup. So I mean, that's easy, cheap exposure to a good spot. So I think he's one of my favorite values of the entire slate. And he is going to carry ownership, 24% owned. So that's where it gets complicated. I could just go, TJD with Drummond, and then that saves me some cash, and I go do something else. But I don't know. I'm kind of drawn to unowned Şengün.
Yeah, Drummond is my favorite. He had foul trouble in the last game. Should see more minutes tonight if he can stay out of it, which I think he will against Toronto. Jackson Davis looks great. Aldama, I mentioned here, you can play him at power forward and center. Kessler started and played 30 minutes the other night. John Collins only played 18 off the bench. That's not guaranteed to continue, but if it does, it's hard to not love Walker Kessler for 30 minutes against Golden State. He's like 2,000 more expensive on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings, and I just think it's a wildly good value on DK. Doesn't even look like he's going to be that popular either, so I like that a lot. Another one on my radar for 6,100 is Pirtle on the other side of that Philly game. Not sexy, but if they can stay in the game, you should see around 30-ish minutes against Drummond. Should be somewhat contrarian, I would think, in this range. 6K, just a solid option overall. Typical double-double production type thing. And I think for 8K, it was mega chalk the other night, but not really going to be popular tonight, I wouldn't think, is Karl Anthony Towns against Indiana. Bad rebounding team. Fast-paced game for New York. I think he's a good bounce-back candidate, just like Brunson at 8K.
Yeah, his projection's really nice. 44 fantasy points, fourth best projecting center on the board. So at 8K flat, he is a value, no doubt about it. Man, lots to think about here at center, especially at center. So like the two spot or the three spots, point guard, power forward, and center. Those are the spots to pay up, I think. And then we can save with Dick, we can save with Mann, Dyson Daniels. Those are probably three of the better values. Thing is, I like Jackson Davis a lot. The only thing is he's not a guarantee to get 30 plus minutes, whereas guys like Walker Kessler and Andre Drummond just feel a lot safer. So that's going to be a decision point for me tonight. Am I going to go punt with Jackson Davis, or am I going to go up for like Walker Kessler and Drummond, or one of those guys with Şengün? All right, so that is going to do for us. Let's close things up with our major number one flag plant of the night.
I think it'll be Drummond for me. I just think it's a great spot. Minutes should come up from where they were the other night. And he's affordable, and he's an awesome per-minute guy historically. So all aboard the Drummond wagon for me.
I think mine is going to be Brunson. I think just with those really expensive point guards, there's so many of them, like LaMelo, Dame, Donovan Mitchell. Who else we got over here? Trey, Steph, Maxey. There's so many guys that are worth using and look great, but Brunson's cheaper than all of them. And he's in just as good of a spot, and he has just as good of a ceiling. He just doesn't project quite as well. He's going to carry a little bit of ownership, but I just think he's in a smash spot, smash price. So I'm going to build with him right away. Also really like Zion at 8.1, just really too cheap. And for me, it's going to come down to what I'm going to do at center. Like, it's going to be tough. I'm not decided yet because I really am drawn to Şengün, but his price is ticking up, and there's just so many other options to turn to. So anyways, hopefully this helps you out a little bit. If it does, give this video a like and also subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and good luck.